Hi, thank you for having this.
You're welcome. You are welcome. Well, with that, then we'll get started. Um, my name is Stephanie Zasyakina, for those who may not know me yet, and today is Sam's Get It Done webinar of the month. And this month's theme or discussion is about templates. And so it's pretty well open for you guys. Just a little bit of housekeeping, though, is just like if you'd like, show your faces. I love seeing people. It really makes me happy because otherwise, this is my space. I sit here most of the day looking at a screen. So I love seeing faces, makes me super happy. Well, you're not speaking, if you'll just mute yourself so there's no background noise. If you've got multiple folks on your team on the call, that you should, one person should locate, or everybody should locate things in the system, but really only one person should be building something. If you're building like the same template that we're talking about today, you don't want duplicate things happening. You can definitely use the chat button to ask questions. And if you like to share your screen, there's a share button at the bottom of your screen, which when we get to that, I will make sure you can allow, or I can allow screen sharing. We'll get there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're recording this so that we can use this as a reference later. So know that that's happening. Oops. And because I'm already here, what I really want to do is just jump right into Sam. But next month, I've got one date change. Spring break is out last week of the week of the 22nd, so we'll be out of town. But on our so if you will go ahead and add all of the webinars to your calendar. I'll remind you about this a little later. But the 17th, the 25th, so changing from all Wednesdays to that Thursday on the 25th, and then the 31st will be our webinar schedule. And so with that, I actually want to open up and find out what sorts of things your teams might be doing with templates. And if there's not a lot of conversation, then I'll jump in and we'll start talking about some templates. Is there anything anybody's doing though?
For Stanford Sierra, we use templates for many different things.
Okay.
We use them for sending emails, just a basic auto action, connecting a template to the auto action to send an email to remind the social worker to do monthly confirmations for their rates for the children in on their caseload.
Okay.
We also do principal style templates. So the reports that we create in SAM via forms, we will create a template with that same data that they're entering in for them to print out and send off to the county or send off to other team members that need that actual principal report.
Okay.
We have done templates on like the portal as far as like making it look pretty. So adding pictures or adding instructions on how to utilize the portal or utilize different links on the portal.
Yep, for instructions. We've got that too. So I'll make sure to show folks that today. There's actually a couple things that I've gotten from clients actually of how they're using templates. So I'll show you that too. Okay, because you might like some of this as well, Brittany. Even though you guys are advanced. What other things are you? So you're printing still a lot of the forms that are entered into the system so that you can just send it out to counties or other folks that are working with a youth.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So like for our quarterly reports, that's just a basic form that of course we've created in SAM, but we've created a template, which is like the printable version of that form to that pulls in the data that the social workers have entered in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a pretty way for them to just get all the data in one organized place, as well as pulling data from other parts of the child or family cover pages. And
Okay.
then they can print it, export it to Word, and then send off as needed.
Do you guys have questions, Brittany? I know that you guys use templates a lot. Are there things that challenge you in the system with setting up the templates?
I would say because templates can get very finicky and difficult as far as like the sizing of like tables. If you want to put a table and put data inside those tables, um, they're yeah.
Hmm.
Like are there any basic or easier ways to create a template as far as like using tables and resizing the tables on templates or page breaks or things like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are easier ways, but I will go over how those things can be done. Let me see if
Okay.
there's a home study. Actually, I saw it there a second right here. I like going to a home study template because it's long. There's just a lot of stuff pulled onto it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have noticed a couple things about this must be the one that we built last week. We started working on last week. Um, there's a couple things about tables that I've noticed that are kind of funny when I built, and I'll show you in my master site kind of what I mean in order for placement of information to be where I want it to be, what it looks like. So
Yes.
on a table, right, we can all sort of see this outline of the table. If you right click on it, you can access the table properties. So is that something that you're doing, Brittany, regularly? And with that, you can adjust the width. So we can look at this template and see, and you are just going to have to kind of play with the width that seems to work for what your team needs. Like, and I think it would actually depend if you print this portrait or landscape as far as what width you'd actually like, which I think is going to be important. Trying to think if there are certainly other styling, but the styling is um, with HTML. So it goes ahead and pulls the style, but this, if you wanted specific fonts that are different than what's shown, you'd have to add that a like font family and then the colon. So those things can be looked up. It's not really fun to do all of that HTML unless you're very familiar with HTML, but those are opportunities for you. Um, Brittany, I think you disappeared right as soon as I asked a question.
My computer died. I
That's
apologize.
okay. That's okay. So I was curious. I'd asked you if when do you right click and know about the table properties?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
I,
really,
I
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think also too, it's like as a user, we should know like how we want the table to be set up as well, like the sizing, like the width and the height and just yeah. But for me, it it'll be helpful to know like what sizes work for template.
Yeah,
Like,
and I think what I was saying is it really will depend upon whether you're printing portrait or landscape. I
mm,
assume most of the time we're going to print in portrait, and so I typically go with like 900 pixels. And I was thinking we can go over here and kind of play with that. So under advanced options there's this option to open a random record. And you can see here if I print here now, that's 900 is really spanning quite the width. So it is going to depend how far apart do we want. Like in this case, with this type of information that we're displaying here, what I didn't do last time is move all the rest of this data up into these two columns. But it's a little bit too spread out, I would think, potentially for the small amount of data that I'm inputting here. So actually in this situation, I might really only want to have a more narrow. So, and it is, I think it's going to be a play. So I would play between probably 600 and 900. 900 is probably our width. Let me see if let's do this. Lorem ipsum. I'm going to grab some some words just to throw in to both columns so that we can play with. and like how wide does this look in when we have more printed there. What you can see here is this, and this is what I was kind of mentioning without being really explicit about it, is that other tables and other verbiage that happens underneath these tables can look a little awkward in the template. So you can come up here and, of course, bring it down where inside the template designer, rather, it looks better, but that may create a whole bunch of space on the template itself. So let me refresh this and then Control P, and we can kind of see. So 900 pixels is going to be about the width that you'd probably want. And I don't know if that's helpful, Brittany, for you, if you have lots of like narrative going in each column.
Yes,
So
that
that
is
it's
very helpful.
okay. So that it's nice and full. I mean, assuming that you want some margin on the side, which I
Yeah.
think you'll need that. So I think between 700 and 900 is going to be 900 we can see is like really filling up the full width of the page. And and actually I would say it's probably pretty it no, where does this say? My margins are default, which I don't necessarily know what that means. Let me do custom. Okay, so less than than a half inch, right? So to me, it was looking a little narrow. So I think that tells us a lot actually about the width of that table, is that we probably want 700-800, especially if your team likes wider margins, and that becomes preference and printer functionality and things like that. Um, who else might be using templates that um, and have things that you're working on? Did anybody need help with building anything? I think one thing that I would like to show is making sure that we see what a report looks like on here and how to fiddle with that. Jen, do you use templates?
Not to the degree that my colleague on the call does. We do use templates, and I agree that the sizing is a little off, you know, when you're trying to put a column in or a table in. You have to fudge it. You have to like play with it several times to try and get it lined up so it looks normal. So
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating for sure. We will be updating it in the coming year or so. We'll have a different template designer to play with. This though is, yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I'm just gonna show you here. So I'm surprised you don't really. Does that mean, Jen, for your team that you're really like everything's in SAM and you're not printing anything to send off to other people?
we do send things to other people, but we do it outside of SAM if we're going to do like a paper form. We've not, I don't think we've used it to the capacity that we could. At least I haven't in our department. Perhaps other departments have. They would have to speak to that.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that I was talking to you guys about on like is how the formatting looks with tables is this one here. You can see that this, who it was prepared by, the preparation date, things like that, is kind of up side by side of the template. However, if I open the template up, it actually doesn't look like that. I don't really understand why the system wants to enforce that for me. I don't know if it's the how wide this particular table is right here that's kind of doing that. But obviously, if well, let me show you, because it really may not be obvious. It's very clear to me because I've done this. Like, this is what I would want it to look like. This is what it looks like right here, right now. However, I have noticed if I save this now, I'm going to end up with a lot of kind of dead space on the template itself. Great. I love this. Now it doesn't even look like that. So whenever I was working on it months ago, these were way further down. And now, of course, showing it to you today, it doesn't work like that. So just know I have had to sort of play with where this is to avoid excess margin and space that's not really being utilized on a form. Another thing I'll show you about the tables, like, and I can see it in this table particularly that I don't really love. And it again, I think it's going to depend on the type of information that you're displaying in a table. You can right click, and we talked about table properties, but also there are cell properties. So depending on how wide this table is, I might actually want to make my columns have very specific widths as well. So I guess when I look at this, I'm not loving the sort of empty space over to the right. So I might actually, if this was an 800 pixel table, set column 1 as 400. Or on the contrary, if I don't like the excess space, which I talked about over here, right? Especially when it was sort of small pieces of information, when it wasn't a narrative filling up the space, I actually would have preferred it to be closer together. And that is just going to be preference. So I think it's important to just see that you can also manage the cell along with the table in general. Trying to think what else I also do. I typically take off. I don't really want to have borders. So I usually set it as 0 borders. But again, those are things that are specific to you and your preferences. Cell spacing is going to be like, let me see if I can show you this. I'm going to scroll in here. Do you see these lines here? And it's sort of like each cell has its own dashed box or dashed line rather around, and then there's a dashed line that kind of surrounds the whole thing. So cell spacing is this piece in here, which excuse me, let me jump to this. Over here, I might actually want more if my information has narrative, because that's a little too close. All right, so I might want more cell spacing to separate those cells versus cell padding. If I go over here, is the space in between this word and that dash line, or this word and that dash line. So the cell padding is bringing the text and information inside the cell. The cell spacing is separating the cells from each other. So you can play with that. I typically keep it at 1, except for I very clear if I had a table that was displaying narrative that I wanted shown side by side, like potentially applicant information, I probably would recommend more cell spacing there. You would probably want more cell padding if you like borders. Okay, you want that look, even if like some of these borders are on just the header row or something like that. And again, this is where tables and document structure, the way that it looks, is going to be really specific to what you're wanting that document to appear like. And since let me go over here. That's the master. Let's stay in the tri-site. So when I give you an idea of what does, border look like, and let's do cell spacing of 3 and cell padding of 2 to kind of play with what does this change the document to appear like. It almost seems too like each of the cells have a border on them. So and it's interesting, maybe because of the amount of text that's inside those narrative, I don't actually see the cell spacing changing unless it's such a minute number that it's not doing much. Let's see if I do like 10, and maybe I also should save it. And then that opens it up. And what we can see here too is it's actually managing the cell spacing between each of the cells. So what that could mean is that some of like your header row or some of these other pieces of information may actually just be in a single cell rather than in multiple cells. Okay. I don't really love this look, but to each of their own on what they do and don't like for certain documentation. Any other questions kind of on the table structure itself? I think I may jump and make sure that just review, because I don't know who's on this call that wasn't on last call, and review some of the concepts unless there are specific asks. Is anybody pulling the home study into a template? No. Yeah, I think that it's somewhat of an underused component of the system that could really avoid a lot of copying pasting outside into a Word document, especially for all the demographic types of information. So we had set that up in our master site so that really we looked at the application form and pulled all the information in, referenced a home study template that we found, and the only thing that sort of I think feels funny with putting the home study here is that there is actual narrative sometimes, well, a lot of times, where a lot of the demographic information is summarized by the social worker writing the home study. And the way, let me go here, the way that I've remedied or offered a solution for this is adding narrative fields onto the home study record itself. So on a specific home study record, I've got another form that's based on the home study so that these narrative fields are specific to here. I kind of pulled information about the family and things that the social worker would write narrative on. And then they can come in, certainly edit these things, but they can write further information into these narrative fields. We could also create just a list of narrative fields that you want your team to summarize and show them the information about their finances and employment, and then have a summary field beneath that they can summarize. And that summary field is what's pulled into the home study rather than each individual piece of information. I think that that's a neat function that again, it does seem to me to be somewhat underutilized. Okay, so I'm going to show reports, and then I'll also show what Brittany mentioned and how their team is using templates on the family portal. And I did try, so we'll save that because I did make a test to see if you could actually link templates to the sidebar of the family portal, and Sam won't let families see templates. So that's unfortunate, but I will show you how you can use templates here in a minute. So on your template, through the template designer, you would use reports to show things like all the communications last month. I find that is a template that people are printing often. You might show, like on this home study template, all of the children in home, or all of the people that live in this family's home, or all of the background checks that they've had, all of their references. I'm trying to think. Lots of things like their academic history, military history, those sorts of things. Any information that the family may have entered into the application, again, we can pull that from the report. And even if the family didn't enter the information, if your team is still using perhaps a PDF application and entering data, if that data, I guess this is like sort of a, what am I saying? What are my words? A suggestion to move from the PDF to the online application would be that you could get this information out without having your team have to do that data entry. That's one of the main benefits of using that application form online, right? So Let's pull, I wonder if I have references. I do, and I will still create another template or report from that. Actually, not in here. I'll put it in the tri-site. And there's not a reference template on here, so we'll add that. So you'll build a report, right? I believe within the last year, we've definitely done actually January was all about reports, actually. So you could definitely reference those, but I will show kind of a quick how to build a report so that folks know how to do it. And then we'll put that report onto the template to showcase how that looks. So one of the things that I always recommend when you're building reports or you're building auto actions or templates, any of these things, is to name them for what their purpose is, right? So having an XYZ name title for things isn't going to be helpful. And I don't say that like necessarily jokingly. We've seen things like that and no one else can understand why. But if I am using a lot of reports for the template, like prefacing it with template or home study template or for whatever template this is supposed to be for, will help you locate that template a little easier, or report and template and auto action, etc. Right? Kind of doesn't matter. So I like to preface my reports with templates that I know that that's what I'm using it for. I'm using it on the home study, and then I'm doing references. When you're building reports, you will then choose the specific table for which, or the entity first, and then the specific table that you're looking to pull information about. So I'm going to choose the family. This is about their references, and must be in result is going to say, I'm only going to show, they're going to tell Sam rather that you want to only show families that have references. You really want to exclude. You don't want to see a family and empty values where the reference data is. Okay. So we want to see this because that's what we're pulling on. And then for a template, we actually don't need to have the family's name there. And by default, the system will remove the family's name. So something that I don't know, because people use different name fields, is what field does it, and what I think is like these family name fields. So if I put in these fields, what I don't know is, does it only do some? Does it remove all of them? We'll just check and see here. But I'm really concerned with the reference information. So maybe like, what state does does this reference live in? We definitely want their name. We definitely want their length of relationship, what type of relationship is, where do they live? Maybe we want their email address on there. Then I can modify the order of that. So I've got my name fields here, and we'll end up moving that. We definitely want email at the end. Length of relationship, we'll probably put over here. The type, the state, maybe like that. 7. Okay, go. Sometimes you'll see that these don't want to play well together. So cool. We can open this report and we'll see there's actually only 7 families that definitely have a reference record. And this is the organization of it. What I find sometimes is, why does Sam want to do this? Not really sure. And even though I left it on a particular order, it reorders it. Easy enough to move it. So we'll move the field after the reference name. Okay. So then I'm going to take this template and put it, I'm going to take this report and put it on the template. Here's my template. This is my tri-site. Actually going to go ahead and move away all of this so I don't see that. And then I'll add references here. And so that I can see it and you can see it as well, I'm going to increase the font size here. And now under my title for references, I'm going to insert a multi-record section. Here I can choose from a template report or a multi-record template. I'm going to pull the report that I just built. And home study, actually it's right here. Okay. And then when I save this, we'll look and see if our shift home, I'm just going to make this the same size. It takes on the size of the default styling by default. And I talked about that on the last webinar. And so if we want to address that again, we can. So this is how the template looks like here, right? Because, or the report looks like here on the template, because it's going to be variable in what information is displayed per family. So it's really just showing that, yes, there's a report sitting here. Anytime there is a template report added, it's prefaced by this. And let me save that one more time. And if I go to my template for print, we can refresh this and it's going to take away this. And so in situations where there are no records, we can actually change how that displays, but there are none for this particular family. So let me see if this will take me back. That's because I opened a random record. It isn't even, there's our record showing me who. So I'm going to go to this family and add a reference, and then we'll see it entered on. Okay. Go ahead and go. Try and jump over here. It's thinking a while still. Go. All right, so grab our family. I'm going to add the reference record and just want to make sure that you see how that looks. And there's references. Add a reference. This is apparently my new, this is what I think of often. I'm going to put 10 years. Again, if this information is entered by the family, then your team is not having to do this data entry, which is really awesome. You'll just do data correction if you need to do that. Here, nope, that's the master. Excuse me. Go back here. And if I refresh, we're going to instantly see these people on here. And so remember on my report, I had the names, and all of those name fields are excluded. So where you can use a report for your team's review of that information, you could also pull that same report onto the template because it will exclude family name. So it just sort of depends. I believe it's probably easier to separate information out and have this a specific template report, a separate report built specifically for use on a template. Are there any questions about that part? If I add more records, they'll instantly show on this information. If I were to adjust the report, it'll instantly be changed on the template and any templates that report happens to be used on as well. This here, I was wondering if the system told us about what templates this report is built on. It does. I thought that it did. So under the report builder, you can see all the templates that this happens to be used on. So if you are making changes to it, you'll know how it affects other things, which I think is really helpful in the site. The other thing on the report itself, I think under this miscellaneous advanced options is where you might change the font. The report template style, it's taking whatever the default is by default, and you could have different options. Those are available. Gosh, I did it last week on it. And through this font settings, I believe is where you find that the default style for all templates or the report or template styles, and you could have different ones. So if you have, your home study template report styles, and then you have like your communications report styles, it does require HTML. We're happy to help with that if you have specific ways that you want to see it done. Okay. Does anyone have questions on those, on that setup, or have like things that you might, you know, do you have anything that you want to share at this point on that part? Okay. Let me show you then what Brittany was talking about. I'm going to get out of here. In our master site, this family, I'm going to go to their cover page. I'm going to copy their email and open up the family portal for this family. Well, I'm already logged in. So on the, and let me actually open this here, family portal here. So you've got a lot of places to add messaging. Okay. So you could build messaging here, and this here gives you a very trim family portal, right? You don't get all the options. You can build tables here. You can put line breaks, but otherwise it's pretty simple. If you want it to get fancier, you have to add, edit the HTML. Okay. But maybe you want to use the template designer to create a template for your family portal and use that at the top. And I'll show you in Nightlight site a way that they've been using this too. So on the form, right? So this is the form customizer page of the family portal. Under advanced form properties, there is a spot to add, instead of adding all the message that's shown today at the top the way that it is, you could actually add a template for the header. Okay, you can also do that at the footer as well. So I'm thinking on the footer, you might show information about where they need to go to next. What's going to, just presenting them with something that's a little more in your face legible if you really want the family to read the information. I do believe Nightlight used a template at the footer with a print button link in the past for them to print. I think there might be other ways of doing that today, but I do think that's how that was being done at one point in time. Today on some, and Jen, may I have your approval to go into Nightlight's site and look at a test record? I wanted to show them the how Lisa had added the images at the top.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to jump in their site, which actually I feel like was already in the site this morning. Working on some things. I'm going to go to any family. One of the things that they've done is, let's go to a couple. I think you'll actually have different family test records. Here, they've added an image just because they've got so many programs. They added an image to associate for a family what case they happen to be looking at, especially because some of their cases will have, or rather, some of their families will have so many cases, having an image at the top to denote the differences in these case types. And then this one, I think, is the default, which I think if, I thought it was a case type, didn't it? Or maybe this particular case like doesn't have one.
This hasn't been really assigned for anyone yet because of the case program and country and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't have one until it's assigned.
Okay, got it. So these happen at certain cover pages when and then they differ. And what's happening here is they had created a template. And so it's an interesting way to use, I think, and Jen, you can speak to it because you guys use it every day. Is it helpful? Does it help you out when you're looking at the record?
Oh, absolutely. It helps us immediately because people only have to look at the picture and know whether they're in the right domain or not. What would help us immensely, though, is when we're doing a search, if we could see some kind of communication along the list of names, whether they're domestic or international or snowflakes or whatever.
Right. Because let me ask you that. Does that mean that your team is often going to the pages here and, or actually we can go right here and clicking, like you might click view all?
Yeah, the reason why we want to do view all is that sometimes it's not identified by the communication from the person which program they're in. So we have to search for their name, right? And it would be helpful if we had some kind of trigger that along the side that says this is a snowflakes one, this is a domestic, this is a international.
So you can't do that today in this, but you can do that today through reports. So if you had,
Yeah,
um,
but see, that's a long way round to search for someone when they're on the phone or what have you. We want to do it immediately, like within seconds.
right. Well, and what I'm suggesting is having a report ready to go that just is all families, and you click search and you type in that name.
Mm.
So, but I get it. It is going to be where you have to like, I'm going to get out of your site to show this.
Here's another thing.
Hmm.
Am I right in understanding that only certain people see reports? Because not everybody is an admin. So a regular Joe who's answering the phone is not going to be able to necessarily go in to the administrative side through reporting.
Well, okay, so reporting, right. So everybody can't build their own report. So what I'm suggesting is more like a families all report, like just a very simple, it really is like family name, case program, who might be working on it, period. Nothing else, not, not all the other fruff fruff is not a good word, but all the other detailed information that comes beyond, right? We're not really interested in that. We're actually just interested in trying to get to that record quickly. And so if you look at a report, you would click on family name, search by field, and then really you are having to sit here and contains Smith, whatever the name is that came up. And so you get those records and then you can click and open the record. Right. So that's an option to get there where you'd see all the information you might need to know immediately on that call, which it sounds to me like case program, what case stage they're in, who's working on them. That's all to try and get them to the right team member or enter more information, like enter a case note on our communication record on that call. And of course, that's going to vary on what the purpose of the call is. But that's the option that's available today. And so to your point about permissions is every user cannot add or edit reports. Only users who are full admins can administer reports. So this report could be there. The other thing that will come into play, to your point, is what that user can see. So if they are a view and edit user that isn't limited to anything, they would be able to see all families and be able to search. If they are limited to just those families or records they're allowed to see anyways. So that will be like what reports they're allowed to see and what records that they would even be able to see if they did the search. So like if you have an inquiry person that's actually only able to see records where their name is the inquiry coordinator, for example, if somebody called in and their name is not listed on the inquiry coordinator or as the inquiry, they wouldn't be able to search that person anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually only have a limited view, even when they click view all, if they can only see that. And we'll let you know that we get some comments about the system being slow. This is one of the things that causes the site to be slow. This and if you're on a report and you click to view all, which it's interesting. I think in most of your sites, especially as your agency grows, you don't even have the view all. My tri site has that now because I only have, 300 records or something total. But when the system is having to query hundreds of thousands of families by clicking all, it takes forever and actually bogs down the site for everybody. But you're seeing like, okay, it's taking a long time, but it actually is interfering with everybody, which is unfortunate. But it does. So that's why I do think reports are better for that than even clicking that. Um, Yeah, so you're going by name and you immediately want to know what case program they're in because they're not able to communicate enough to you. Do other people, Jen is not giving me something new. I've heard that over and over from several different agencies. Is there anybody else on the call that uses that tool regularly, this quick search tool and or the view all? And then are there other things that you would want to see in that section? And Jen, for you, do you think that a report, now that I've kind of showed the report, could that be an option for you if you had a really like trimmed down report and your team knew how to do it and it was on, you always, if you're talking to a family, you go here and it's the very first report here. Would that be?
I don't think that's the ideal. The ideal that has been requested multiple times over from everyone is they just either want an emblem or a letter or something that indicates down the side when you see a list of names, which program they're in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I heard from the developer is that case program field may not be consistent for all agencies. That's why. And it's not that the values within it, but some agencies may be using a different field altogether because SAM is so customizable that it doesn't, it wouldn't, that specific field ID would not be of value to every person. However, I think that argument may be moot if 80% of folks are using the case program field in the way that it's intended. It may actually really truly be of benefit. Let me see if and how that might be possible certainly before the year ends here. But it is specific to case program, Jen, right? Because I know like right now on Nightlight site, you guys have like at least 3 different ways of identifying sort of that case program.
Yeah. If there could even be like an emblem, you know how you talked about how we created a template with the picture?
Yep.
If there could even be a minimized picture template down the side. Like if it's a snowflake, you'd see a snowflake down the side. If it was a pregnant lady, you'd know that it was the adoption for the embryos down the side.
Right. Okay. Let's see who else is on. Do you guys mind if I call your names? I know like some folks like Patrick is pretty well brand new, but Stacy, I know you're working in the site quite a bit in she's up in Washington with Agape. I hope is it Agape or Agape? I should know that probably, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Curious if you would find either this valuable or if you have any questions. Or Nancy. Maybe people are also not listening anymore. Totally. Let me see here. Bye, Brittany. Thank you for coming in. Okay. Let me show you what else then has been done in our master site that I think is really helpful. We've actually just linked a form. So I think this is what Brittany talked about a lot in her building of the family portal is a page for the family to start. Okay. I actually started playing with this a little bit more, maybe last week, but I don't remember when, and built this up so we can talk to that as well. But this here is a form that has a template on the top. The form does not have to have fields on it to be displayed. That's okay. Cool. Okay. The form does not have to have templates on it to be displayed, but it can display just informational things that you want to share with the families as they start working with the family portal. So Brittany suggested instructions. That's kind of what we have intended for here is like another welcome to folks, how to get in touch with your team, how to log in, what that login experience is going to be like for them. And then somebody asked me last week about adding documents on here. So within templates, you can actually add like I would recommend probably PDFs or JPEGs. Sorry, this is going into the master site. So that's what sample data will do. And maybe the documents itself don't actually work in through the trice. Oh, let me look here. Is that true for all of these? Or what's happening here? Go home. That should be showing me my picture here, and I'm not really sure why it is not. So I love that. When I get errors, and let me check this, I'm imagining this is going to, oh, I didn't even link anything to that one. Let's look and see what this is. Well, let me see if we can play with that, because my expectation, because whenever I tested it last, it worked, but today does not. So here's that start page. The only thing on it here is the template that we'll see down here. And you can't get to the template from here, but we can go to settings, to the template designer, and I'll use the browser's find function to find that template by name. And then I'd added a table, I'd added images, and when I double click on the image, I can link it to a specific page or URL. Let me see what this question is. Okay, cool. Bye, Patrick. So those are options for you. This here, I think this is over here. Did that? Great. That actually did what I wanted it to do. So I'm not really sure. I would probably need to play with these images. Maybe those links are actually gone, and that's why it's giving me the message that says that we can't find that link. This document 4, I couldn't tell because it's just sort of hard to see. So maybe where's my template? Oh, very first link over here. Let's actually do it over here. Highlight some text that I want. I imagine even if I highlight this image, options, and insert a document link. I can go from here and we'll have to see if this functions. Actually, I want to pull in this like updated home city information. Adding the link text may override that image, and it does. If I press save though, this image, this link is going to allow us, and I need to save here, to go in and download the Word document that I just uploaded. So it's a way that you can provide other documentation to your families or other information. We have a few minutes left. I'm curious, for folks that are using this family portal, is that something that you have used? Would you find useful? Jen, you're my talkative person. Would you guys use this? And I'm curious, your families the families that you're working with, they go in and enter an application form, right?
They do. Every department runs a little bit different, and the Snowflakes department, what we have is a checklist, but the other departments use portals.
Right.
So, but yes, they're able to go in. The little down arrows allow them typically to download a document, and then they have a file folder to upload the document. And then if it's an online form, they have a little icon that's a clipboard with a pencil. So it's easily identifiable which ones they can print out and which ones they have to do online.
Right. This section here.
Yeah.
So do your families need, or do you feel like there's a purpose to have a family portal for your records?
We actually talked about it in our department quite a bit, and we didn't feel like there was a need to do that, because once they're done with their checklist, they don't really have to go in there again. And if they want to go in there again, they contact us and we give them permission, we allow them to access it, or we'll upload it for them. So
Got it. Okay. All right. The one other last thing that I'll say about templates, and this is the piece that was taught to me actually by a client looking at how they built their site. I noticed it over here on the checklist. Excuse me. I'm pretty sure was it on the, no, it wasn't on the checklist. It was on, let me just go back. It is about this form, but over here, this back to main form, this agency had just a very simple text like this that had a link. And what they've done here's that start, is added a template. And look, I didn't do that here, did I? I just added it at the bottom. I just added the text at the bottom. But they basically added a template for just links. So then they use that linked template as either on the template header or on the template footer, so that they don't have to recreate that link to get back to the main page all the time. So it could certainly, that template could have an image with a back button that you like or whatever, or it could just be a back button. It can take you back. And they use that in addition to like the written template that you might see up here. So let me go back to the form. You can add information, and you know what you do have to do is like add a field first to see this text here. I don't know why that's true, but you do. When you click in here, you can add messaging here, and you can have a template. So you can actually use both pieces to have more information, which I think is really cool. And Jen, on your checklist, you can do both of those things as well if you found like you want to explain more, have more information. You're like, if you wanted to show a series of links to leave the checklist to get back to more information to Nightlight's site, whatever you might want to do, you do have that ability even on the checklist page itself to add this template at the top and to use this messaging piece at the top and the template. Both of you can use both.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Actually.
Cool. Well, that's what I have for you today. If you want and can, we'll be having the community call next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Let me go back here. And then there will be a couple of weeks that we're off of these calls. So in the meantime, you're certainly welcome to reach out to support at inreachsolutions.com or click the support button in your system. We're happy to help. All of these next webinars can be found online at our webinars page. I'm pretty sure this will take us to it. Great. Love that too. It is under events. So inreachsolutions.com/events. And over here, you can register for these calls. And then this date in March has been rescheduled just one day over. So cool. Well, I definitely look to hear from you soon should you need us. And if you have questions, otherwise enjoy your snowy weather if you're having that. Hopefully everybody here must obviously have power, which is great, and your family and friends are all safe and warm, and wish you well. Thank you very much for joining. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jen. You're welcome. Bye, guys.